almost like an obsession he had with sexual ethics in his day.
Let's see, what happens is that it is also taboo. You try to do a study. Why? First, why is it taboo and how do I have to guide? Also because, let's see, he is in a practice where he listened a lot and had to know why human behavior was that way. Why was this obsession, let's put it this way, towards sexuality unleashed? And here are two actors inside of a sexual relationship that is man and woman, where the woman could not decide and the man was dominant. So, because then there are two different thoughts, then the one that generates power and the one that
He abuses, can he?
well, he who abuses power and he who has to let himself be dominated because he has no other choice, because he can't, he has no right. You have to
Give in.
giving in, then it is the human behavior that allows you to be the dominant one, or the one who generates the pressure and the one who generates the oppression, and that and the oppressed are two different thoughts, and he let himself get carried away a lot. Everyone stopped being carried away a lot by the sexual part. Even if they close us, don't censor certain this part, we have to say it in the right way.
Because remember that the bourgeoisie lived this orgy. Let's also talk, for example, about the time the Romans lived these orgies. It was normal. Homosexuality was also normal. So he knew when he contracted more diseases, he worshipped sex. It has already begun to be like those who say you have to be more careful, and it has become more like a taboo, because as long as, unfortunately, the human being, as long as there are no negative consequences, they are going to continue doing it.
Of course, because let's see, because there is generated what we have already talked about at some point, consciousness, generate consciousness, then to generate consciousness. It is when, and just like that, we talk about him as the little devil, the good and the bad. It's not where you practice a lot, it can hurt you.
Sure. So let's talk a little bit about, and we're going to focus a lot on what Freud left as a map, not what the subconscious is, which is the ego and the superego. Then let's explore the impulsive subconscious reasoning, which emerges instinctively without prior deliberation.
Yes, but they are feelings, they are repressed thoughts, they are the super repressed that is between them. Between them there is violence, wanting to hit, wanting to scream. Oppression embodies all negativity, deeply hidden due to the constraints imposed by our conscience.
We're subconsciously striving to hold on to elements deemed essential for evolution, yet this endeavor often becomes, unfortunately, complex and limiting over time. We don't focus on trying to solve traumas that did occur and that hurt us. We repress this, and it is not that the information is lost, but that the information remains, as you say, in the subconscious, and that becomes instinctive when it reappears. I mean, it's like, for example, if you are in danger, that is, at that moment you don't think. It's an instinct we have from our evolution. Fight, run, or fly, right?
Of course, is the most primitive part of our thinking. I mean, there is everything primitive, what we consider primitive.
So then the
Primitive reactions that we, let's say, imprison and keep buried in the depths of our subconscious, because it is the deepest, clear, and primitive desires, even of sexuality.
Sure. And for example, I really like to always analyze this because, for example, man is instinctively biologically made to procreate. That is why men do not get pregnant and can have sex on a daily basis. No, but logically, it is a man's biological, natural, primitive instinct. No more, logically. 1. If there were no rules, many men would abuse that impulse. Not perfectly, because, as you said before, in Freud's time, women had no voice or vote, and unfortunately, they were living under the yoke, the domination of a man's decisions. So we have to maybe expand a little on the aspect of that. Imagine in those times a man was coming, well, get off, we're going to bed at once, you have nothing to say. I mean, we are talking about that perhaps in those times being a taboo, but also that taboo, it was a mystery of massive sexual abuse, right?
Of course, because if you didn't have this suppression or this repression of this primitive instinct to have relationships, not just with one, but with several couples, at the moment that the man or person had available, because it was not at the disposal of the desire that that person had at the moment that he wanted, there was no obstacle, or there was no, let's say, something that the regulation indicate. The healthiest thing is do it in this way, under respect, under consideration, or that it had to be consensual. There wasn't that kind of, shall we say, ground rules that govern society today, a little more polite and a little more controlled. You see, as we say, when it was something very primitive. So this primitive instinct I weighed to a norm of coexistence. So that is the primitive desire of the why.
Is that right then? Well, you look at how beautiful that when we begin to analyze the and no, sometimes people wonder, no, in psychological cases, they always wonder, I don't know why I react this way. Either I don't know why they give me these instincts, or they give me these, or I'm born. For example, a person who sometimes has anxiety doesn't have an anxiety disorder. Does he start eating ice, but he doesn't know why? He doesn't know why that instinct to eat ice drives him, or maybe his hands start to shake. No, but there it is, not that instinct of fighting, running, or emphasize that we are seeing it in its essence, but perhaps not developed to the point where, for example, if you have a panic attack, logically it is going to be much stronger, but you can see what our instincts manage to do, but also based on the fears we have. No, because Freud also talks a lot about these instincts of fear, about traumas that are buried in us.
But of course, first, our consciousness or our brain buries them because we need to fit into a society. And if this society generates rules, we hide them to comply with these rules. And there we begin to bury it, but we do not treat them. And at the moment in which it is generated, a conflict or something primitive like a fight, an altercation, they come out and are no longer controlled. Then no, by not being controlled, your reactions are different from behavior. They are radical and they are different from your normal everyday behavior, such as in your current society diary.
That's how it is. And what you are saying, David, is very good, because from there arise great resentments, hatred. No, because when one represses so many emotions or does not try to accept reality, because these instincts are also there, as if to remind us what we have done, to try to give a neutralization to that instinct or that impulse of what we have ever felt, and that he can come back to life. So the detail that we need to analyze
Ayúdanos a
here is
continuar
why
abrazando
most
estas
people try
experiencias
to
humanas y
evade
a explorar
this
más sobre
instinct.
nosotros
What
mismos
happens
y
is
los
that we
demás
don't
al
treat them, we
suscribirnos.
simply bury it, and
Ya
that's the
sabes,
bad
si te gusta
thing,
nuestro
because we
contenido,
don't
asegúrese
treat
de
them
me
and we
gusta,
don't
comentar,
see the
compartir.
origin of
Pero si
These
quieres formar
topics
parte de
matter.
nuestro podcast, todo lo que tienes que hacer es dejar un comentario y decirnos de qué quieres hablar. Recuerda que esta es una plataforma para personas y estamos aquí para explorar esas experiencias de vida que son muy únicas para ti y para otros.
Of course, and
No
it
te
has
olvides de Cisco.
happened to me when I have repressed many situations and I have buried them and I have not treated them. That's why it's good to talk and it's not bad to go. We're a psychologist at this point not to heal, if it is not to know how to manage these primitive emotions, or this is true, because if you don't cure it or if you don't treat it, this comes out and is worse than repression.
Definitely, because the reaction is contained, not that it has been contained. So the reaction is abrupt. And being abrupt, it's very difficult to control something that explodes, isn't it? And you, as a chemist, have to know that a reaction, not just that, is it controllable?
Not only uncontrollable, but when it explodes, its explosion reaction damages many things. It's not its reaction. If not the effect, it leaves its calda.
Of course, it is destructive, and it is so destructive that people, unfortunately, when they explode emotionally because of this, because of the hit that exists in them, they begin, and because they have not dealt with it, unfortunately, then guilt becomes another instinct again. Yeah, so the effect is not only bad. So you have exploded and unfortunately, you have injured yourself, you have injured others, but you have already begun to develop another and another natural impulse system. That is primitive because unfortunately, shame begins. I mean, resentment and shame go hand in hand. They are feelings that go hand in hand. So the development of resentment, once exploited, is shame, right?
And that's not good.
Sure. And then feeling embarrassed, you repress yourself even more in your why. You hide even more. So when one is hiding, one can't even find his own identity because no, he doesn't know how to confront that fear of shame. No, then there is an even much greater effect when you catapult this development of large impulse, because you can no longer repress it or retain it.
So you have to form that alter ego?
So, of course, then what happens is that you start with yourself and with these impulses, with these fears, with these shames. You create walls and you cornered yourself, you alone.
Help us continue to embrace these human experiences and explore more about ourselves and others by just subscribing. If you like our content, definitely like, comment, share it. But also, if you want to be part of our podcast, all you have to do is leave a comment and tell us what you want to talk about. Remember, this is the platform for the people, and we're here to explore those life experiences that are very unique to you and to everyone else. Don't forget, subscribe.